everyone. This is Dr. Jordan from Pinnacle Chiropractic, your local pediatric and prenatal chiropractor in the Sarasota-Bradenton area. And this is my little sidekick today for some modeling purposes because today's video is all about plagiocephaly. And if you've heard that long, crazy name, it's probably because you're a parent who has been at some point worried about your baby having a flat spot on their head. And what does that mean? So a lot of parents will come to us or call our office because they are worried their baby's head is uneven, they have a flat spot, and they don't know what to do about it. Helmets are the most common routine answer for a lot of parents, and sometimes the only thing that pediatricians know to recommend, but there are a lot more things that we can do for plagiocephaly, one of them being chiropractic for sure. So what causes plagiocephaly? What is it? This video should answer a lot of your questions. And a lot of parents obviously are very concerned, and rightfully so, when we talk about a baby's skull. There is a lot that happens during a traditional vaginal birth. Their bones in their head are not totally formed. We know their heads start a lot smaller. We know that their heads have to do what's called molding. So when they're coming out of the canal, part of their sides of their skull here will mold under each other, and then the frontal bone here goes underneath that. And so that's what allows them to fit out of that vaginal canal and for their head to make that passage through to enter into the world. But that obviously takes a toll on their head. Part of the reason this happens is because with the force of contractions, everything that's happening to us internally is also happening to this sweet head. And so this is the body's really intelligent way of making sure that there's no damage done to their head as they exit. But the goal is that as the body is intelligent and they grow and they're hitting their milestones, that head is going to reform into a very nice looking, round, symmetrical head with plenty of CSF flow pumping through it. The issue is that doesn't happen all of the time. Well, why not? So the three main causes of plagiocephaly are, of course, going to be sleeping. That's the number one. Most causes or cases, about, I would say a quarter of them, 25%, are going to be because they are usually sleeping flat on their backs. The Back to Sleep campaign started a lot of really great things, but also, baby sleeping in one position through a good chunk of the night. A lot of parents want their kids to sleep in really long stretches. Of course, we all need sleep and beauty sleep, especially some rest for our brains. And so when they're waking up every 3 hours, that's not great for ourselves, but it is good for them to protect against SIDS and also to get movement of their head and not be in one position. So we talk a lot about swaddling in our office. We're not big fans of swaddling for a lot of reasons, but one of them is because it keeps them in such a tight, stretched position overnight, and they might not turn their head for hours on a time because they're sleeping a lot longer than maybe the average baby who's not being swaddled. So being in the same position while sleeping is a big factor in them developing a flat spot on their head. Number two is going to be torticollis. So when we look at little babies here, we are looking at a few things. When we talk about torticollis, we're looking at something called JET. So J-E-T. J is going to be the jaw. Is their jaw symmetrical? Is it even? Are they able to latch properly? E is for eye. Are their eyes even? Are they symmetrical? You might think your kid is perfectly symmetrical, but as someone who looks at babies all day, we can kind of assess pretty quickly if a baby's head is unsymmetrical, if they have some abnormalities, if there is a flat spot, if they have some bulging in one of the frontal bones, if their sphenoid is on one side is stuck and not getting motion, and then it's causing a flatter cheek. And all of these things are basically, they're playing a part in the brain function. So if our base of our skull is not even, if there's abnormal pressure here, that's all going to be a factor in if that skull and the brain is developing as best as it could be. And so the T for the last thing that we're going to be talking about is any kind of tight muscles or tension in that neck. And so when a baby has torticollis, they might have the tight mastoid muscle here pulling. Oh, bless you. And that's going to cause just a lot of torque, tension, pressure, and that's going to cause issues then with the atlas, that jaw joint here. You're going to start to see some pressure with the eyes, and all of those things contribute to them not being able to move their heads. If your head is kind of stuck to one side, twisted, you can't move it. And so this spot right here is going to become flat from not being able to be in a great position over and over and over. The last thing that we're going to talk about is birth interventions. So things like forceps, vacuum, C-section, those can all start some of a flat spot or plagiocephaly too. There have been studies that do show that using a vacuum, using forceps, are associated with a higher incidence of plagiocephaly. because they are getting a lot of force with those things, that can cause a lot of incidents of that pressure kind of building earlier on, and not such a natural way as it's meant to be. With C-section babies, they often have really perfect heads in the beginning, and that is because they're not getting that molding when they come out of the canal. But the molding is meant to happen for a reason, so we just have to work more with those children as well to try to get more CSF flow, get those heads to be really even, and so that they have really good brain function as well. So what are some signs that you're going to see if your baby might have plagiocephaly? Definitely looking at a visible flat spot on one area of the head. They might have less hair on one side of the head. You'll often see babies have bald spots in the back. So he does not have one, but you'll see sometimes babies have bald spots here. They might have a strip of hair here from being like in a carrier even, being in a car seat, and just their head constantly having something behind it. You're going to see the imbalance of the eyes, the ears, their other facial features. That's a big one. Of course, the flat spot might be minor, but you might see a bigger bulge than somewhere else. So they might have a small flat spot in the back, but then this frontal bone here is kind of bulging out with a lot of pressure. That's another sign. So the thing about having plagiocephaly is it doesn't really matter. Does their head shape matter? If they grow hair and it's covered up, really, what's the big deal? But where there's a flat spot, the brain is underneath that. The brain is also needing to grow into a nice round space, and when there's a flat spot, it's not able to grow into that space. We also do know through more studies that children who have plagiocephaly have a higher incidence of having ear infections and respiratory infections. And any mom who has a child with ear infections will tell you it's exhausting to try to keep battling ear infection after ear infection and then trying tubes and the tube's not working, and that just perpetuating on into much bigger issues. So there are other things that happen because of the lymphatic drainage and the respiratory systems that are affected when we're starting with more pressure in our head and face and skull. So what kind of options do you have? Helmet is obviously one. It is expensive, and while it might fix the shape of the head, it's not doing anything to help the brain underneath. It might fix the head shape, but we're not then integrating anything into the brain to create the brain to grow into that space where we were having some flat spots. We are keeping the brain kind of as is. We're not creating those new synapses, not really working on that neuroplasticity, even if the head shape is better with a helmet. So that is one thing that is a great option if that's the best option for you, but there are other things. And like I said, chiropractic being one of them. So in addition to chiropractic, because that's going to help, all of these little bones in their heads are joints. So when 2-point bones touch, that's a joint. And so pediatric chiropractors have training in working on cranial bones. That's kind of, most chiropractors don't have that training or technique. So something that makes pediatric chiropractors a little bit more unique, but we have training to adjust these cranial bones very gently, of course. But while we're doing that, it's also building these new synapses. It's causing neuroplasticity to just explode for their brain so that they are getting more nutrition to the brain. They're creating bridges between that left and right hemisphere, and they're making that brain and the CSF just continuously have this intelligence of pumping life into their growing little bodies. And so besides chiropractic, doing tummy time is, of course, a very big deal. We talk about tummy time for a lot of reasons. Brain health is one. Getting them ready to crawl, because crawling is a very important milestone in our book. And getting them to have that strength of their head and neck and the strength of their arms, and getting their eyes to be on the horizon and start to incorporate some of these milestones that we talk about so much, but also the reflexes that they need to go on to those next steps. And so tummy time is going to be a very, very important thing. If your baby does not like tummy time, that's also a sign they need chiropractic care. They are having tension somewhere in their mid-back, low back, somewhere that is causing them to not love being on their stomachs, when babies should like that. So that's another reason to find a local chiropractor who's trained in pediatrics and give them a call, see what they can do to help your baby. Alternately, trying to hold your baby more, of course. I know it's easier said than done when we only have 2 hands, and you might have some chores to do or another kiddo, but trying to hold your baby, not putting them in swings and bouncers and car seats, trying to limit their time where they are, putting pressure on that head, being put into a container that's putting some extra strain for them. That is another important thing. So if you are interested in how chiropractic care can help for your baby to make sure their head is beautiful and symmetrical, and really that the brain underneath that is growing and thriving, and they're meeting all those milestones and really developing as best as they should, you can find a pediatrician near you, or pediatric chiropractor near you. Pediatrician's great too, but to have other answers is really, really important. So finding a local pediatric chiropractor, that's a great example of postpartum mom brain, is really important. So going to pxdocs.com is going to help you enter your zip code, find someone near you, and get started on helping your little baby, some hiccups, to start down that right track, just for their development, their thriving in life, and everything that they need to really just excel and meet all those milestones that we always talk about. So if this resonated with you, you know someone else who has a baby that might have a flat spot, give us a call. We can help you find someone near you. You can go on that registry online and look the directory and look yourself, comment someone's name, share this with a friend, whatever it is to help get the word out, because it is something that's not talked about enough, and people are always so surprised when they go to a chiropractor and realize how much it can help their little one. So have a great day. Hope this answers some of those questions on plagiocephaly, and look forward to helping you all.